So now we're recording. So hi, welcome everybody who's joining us here, and welcome Robin. This is an exciting moment because this is our first live blab about psychologically informed environments. So I'll just do a brief introduction. I'm Ray Middleton, a system broker from Fulfilling Lives in Newcastle and Gateshead, and I work for a mental health concern and Fulfilling Lives. And we work with over 100 people with multiple complex needs across Newcastle and Gateshead. But part of our job is also system change. So we're launching this live TV program today, and we're going to do a regular one focusing on psychologically informed environments, which we're going to get on to talk about. And interact with the audience as well. And over time, we'll do a regular one once a week, before and after Christmas as well. And that will allow us to build up an audience about sharing ideas and hearing what you think and exchanging views. So just to let you know about how Blab works for anyone who's new, is a bit like Twitter. You can write comments in. Hi, Jamie. Hi. There's a number of people joining us here. Hi, Richie. So you can write comments and say hello. So you could just practice doing that just by saying hi. When people comment, if you want to ask a question, you can just ask it, but it's easier if you do /Q and a space and then write the question, because it comes up with a little Q. The other things you can do with Blab are you can put your marker over somebody and tap on them, and they get these props, which means you see the little hands going up on Robin now. So on a phone, you can tap the phone, or you can put your cursor over somebody and tap on them. And that's just a way to encourage whether you like what someone's saying. You don't have to do that, but it's just a way to communicate. And then you can follow people. So if you're interested in following Robin, me, or anyone in the comments, you can click on them and just click on follow. So that's enough about Blab, and a brief introduction about Fulfilling Lives and myself and what we're doing. What we're going to focus on for the next few weeks is psychologically informed environments and being useful to yourselves as the audience about sharing information about that. And so I'd like to introduce Robin, or ask Robin to introduce himself and say a little bit about yourself, Robin.
Okie dokie. Just checking the sound is okay.
It seems fine to me, yeah.
Okie dokie. Well, yeah, I'm Robin Johnson. I years and years and years working in mental health, community mental health. Got particularly interested in housing and homelessness about 5, 10, 15 years or so, I guess, ago. Ended up coming up with this term, psychologically informed environments, as a way to try and describe what I and a few others saw as being a lot of really exciting creative work that's done in homelessness services, in working with people with very complex needs. Well, in the mental health services, we used to call it personality disorder, but I think we prefer the term trauma, or complex trauma these days. And I've now become, I guess, one of the kind of spokespersons for this development. It's become a kind of movement almost, really, as people start to get the idea of, yeah, this is actually what we're doing, and it's exciting, and it's worth sharing. And so I run a website. I've written various different papers and academic journals, and was editor and so on for a journal. But mainly what I'm trying to do at the moment is use this really exciting new media stuff, the way we can use video, and we all use email. Yep. But this kind of stuff, where we can actually talk to each other, breaks down those. I mean, you're up in Newcastle Gateshead. I'm down in Cornwall. Yeah, we're opposite ends of the country, and yet we can talk as if we were in the same room.
Yeah, it's very, very exciting, isn't it? And build up a wider community of people interested in, particularly helping homeless services to get better and develop around how they work is psychologically informed environments, or accommodation-based services, people who reach people on the outskirts of society who often end up in homeless services. Is that right?
Absolutely. So I'm just slightly distracted by somebody saying that they're in Japan.
Oh, wow. That is amazing.
Australia joining. This is really a worldwide communication channel, and it allows us to talk to each other in other countries in ways that is just completely impossible.
Yeah, that is right. And what to help the audience as well and build the audience, like with anything new, this is so new as this Blab that we're all on a bit of a learning curve. I'm on a learning curve myself with it. But I was going to just have maybe 5 or 10 minutes interviewing Robin about Pi, and then open it up to answering questions that you posted in the in the feed at the side, or if what people want to come on and ask a question. So if that's the structure, really, we're going to try 10 minutes, just interview an expert like Robin on the topic of Pi, and then open it up, because it's really interesting, because we can learn from each other and be as useful as we can to kind of add value to yourselves watching this, and it gets recorded as well, so we can send you the recording. I'll give you a link to it. So I think, Robin, what would be helpful to ask would be to say, if Pi were a journey that a homeless service might want to go on, what are some of the stages that help that service to develop and get better? That a Pi's it's like a journey. What would some of the stages be?
Okay. Well, what I'm going to try and do is combine answering that as best I can, at least, with one of the questions that's come up on the Twitter feed from Hosting Network 2, who says, "I got a question. What's the word environment mean?" Which is a very good question. So let's try and sort of tuck that in the rest of the thing. We started out originally looking at what was happening in what in America they call shelters. Here we call them hostels or residential units, services that people go to. They're homeless or in any way. It doesn't just apply to homelessness. Obviously, there's loads of different kind of services. So we started out originally talking about the way the whole unit works together. So it's not just a matter of lots of individual staff members or even lots of individual rooms. All the rooms together form a unit. There's different things happening in places, and it all hangs together. Likewise, different staff, different ideas that the staff have, different particular things they're trying to do. It all forms something of a system. Another way of saying what do we mean by an environment? Well, we mean a system, but particularly a system that is a system of relationships between people. Right.
So so just so I understand, it's not just the physical building that might be an accommodation-based service, a homeless hostel or a homeless service, or it's not just the physical building and the layout, but it's the relationships of the maybe paid staff, volunteers, and how that environment affects the people who are coming in and receiving the service.
Exactly. The physical building is important. Right. Just as the staff are important. We tend often to think about improving the quality of services in terms of things like staff training. Yeah. Well, training individuals and supporting individual members of staff is important, but it's how they all work together that creates an environment rather than just a set of... So what we were trying to talk about how it all works together. And the term environment just was the... handy available term. It doesn't. We don't need to get too hung up on any particular word or any. It's not like sort of chemistry where every single element is precisely defined. This is ordinary language that ordinary people use to describe complicated things going on out there.
So would it be helpful then, in my understanding of what you're saying, is if we thought about it as a journey and we're thinking about stages in the journey, maybe one of the stages to think about if you're a homeless staff or service, or if you're commissioning services to be a Pi, would be, what is the environment like? What is the physical space like in terms of, does it allow people to reflect, to have what's sometimes called reflective practice? Is there breakout rooms where you could have a one-to-one chat to help people think about what are the difficulties earlier on that has led to them, their journey ending up maybe being homeless?
The essence of it, really, I mean, there's 4 or 5 particular things that you can focus on, but the essence of it is, have you really thought about the way the whole thing works in terms of psychology, the psychological and emotional issues that your clients bring?
Right. So it's about bringing, being more mindful about maybe the, knowing that the research shows that more than the average amount of childhood trauma will have been experienced by people who become homeless. And if you then change the policies and the ways of relating and the training and the approach of the staff to be more hold that in mind, mindful of those, then you're creating a more of a psychologically informed
environment. And I think the key thing here is that you must. Most services actually do without necessarily really realizing that they are. through and getting the most out of it. But we had a lot of studies done 5-10 years or so ago that looked at the kind of mental health problems that people who become homeless in the UK tend to have. And it's drug and alcohol problems. We don't tend to get some outright mental illness like schizophrenia, but there's a lot of depression, there's a lot of stress, but in particular, a lot of trauma from past experiences, often going way back into childhood.
Right, yeah.
And so the thesis is, if you don't recognize that, if you don't work with those issues, you're missing the point. And also, in a way, you're missing the opportunity, because you're finally managing to engage people who are homeless and coming to your service, who've usually fallen through the nets.
So if I'm understanding what you're saying, Robin, is that the staff and the way the service is organised, it becomes more reflective, more aware of these. Can be more. Some people call it trauma informed.
Absolutely, very similar concept.
Which is come from the States, is that concept of trauma informed. It's they're going to be less likely to re-traumatize people through maybe difficult ways of engaging and evicting people, and more likely to be able to concentrate on the quality of the relationships, being mindful about people often find relationships difficult due to this early trauma, and generally the quality of the service and the support for each other as staff can improve.
Yes,
is that right?
It can improve. What I find is that in a lot of places I go, okay, maybe I'm lucky, maybe I see a lot of the better places, but a lot of places I go, there's actually some really, really good work being done.
Definitely, yeah.
Homelessness resettlement staff are really good at engaging people who are otherwise very reluctant to get engaged. I wouldn't say they're the specialists in this, but they are often better at it than many of the mental health staff who I worked for much of my career with. I've been really seriously impressed. So,
and you're a psychiatric social worker by background, I think.
Social worker, worked in therapeutic community, worked in treating hospitals and all kinds of internationally famous places. And I always say, I've seen as good work done in homelessness services as in any of those other things. But so it's partly a matter of saying, look, if we start getting real about what the work really involves, what's the work we're really doing, and it's engaging people whose needs are so complicated they've fallen through everybody else's kind of filters. It's partly about saying, if we focus on that more clearly, we can do it better. But it's also, why don't we get more recognition for the brilliant work that's been done? This is actually community mental health work for people all other services have tended to not reach and have failed. There ought to be better recognition, not just within the homelessness services, but recognition of the work they're doing from things like the mental health services. Mental health services really ought to be working with homelessness services to improve what's on offer there. That's
So to sum up what you said there, am I right in thinking if the most troubled people in terms of serious mental health problems, sometimes whatever people think of the diagnosis, attract a diagnosis or reach the diagnostic criteria for personality disorder, and often meet other diagnostic criteria, but if the most troubled people also have addiction problems on top of the mental health problems, and they're going in and out of prison sometimes, and if that group of people with the most complex difficulties around their mental health are falling through the system, what I'm hearing you say is they actually don't disappear to another planet. They end up in homeless hostels. And so why not, instead of starting at the other end and trying to work forwards, why not skill up the frontline staff who are doing the really difficult? There's a lot of emotional wear and tear on the front line of staff trying to deal with very difficult situations, challenging behavior. Why not skill them up to become a psychologically informed environment? And therefore they can be more therapeutic in terms of therapeutic, meaning things that help us to get better in its broadest sense. And that way you can bring ideas from all sorts of ideas from elsewhere in terms of being trauma informed, psychologically informed, to the staff group in there. And then that would help those staff to engage better. And that client group could then, in a kind of pre-therapy way, kind of help them get better. Have I grasped that idea? Then it's kind of
You put it beautifully, Ray. That's absolutely right. Incidentally, those of you who are logging on for the first time, I just clicked those two little hands on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. That was my way of saying to Ray,
right.
yeah, I totally agree with you. I like what you're saying. That's one way that you can actually encourage people.
And they call that props. So you can give people props. So if I tapped on you now, you can get some props, which gives the person it's quite difficult to host one of these, or at least a bit anxiety provoking for me. And it's a way to interact with the people. I'm just having a look across because what we could do is sort of try to bring the conversation on it, because we've kind of I think we've hit on a few good topics there about what PI is. Richie has said, can the environment consist of services having an awareness of the amount of rules and regulations they expect from a service user, with a consideration of staff's experience, the support and training? Would this prevent evictions? So I think Richie there in the audience is asking about, are those things like the rules and regulations and the staff training, are they all going to contribute to what we mean by environment?
Absolutely. There are 5 or 6 key things that we suggest people look at if you're interested in kind of thinking about your service as a psychologically informed environment, or if you're a mental health worker, say, wanting to help a homelessness team develop and become more psychologically informed. We mentioned one, looking at the way the built environment itself works, the lighting that you have, even the kind of the layout of chairs in the reception area can make a big difference to the whole feel of a place, and it's pretty low cost.
Yeah.
Lighting from a very harsh neon to something with a slightly softer ginger or orangey colour completely changes how aggressive and attacking it feels. How threatening the place feels. Posters everywhere on the walls saying "We don't accept violence." What's that actually telling? About what they really expect. So there's the built-in environment. There's staff training. There's things like developing a psychological model. So you actually think about what you're doing.
Just to maybe say a little bit. I'm thinking you could say a little bit more about that. So what are some of the themes of this? If we're thinking about PI as a journey, which some services will be doing really good work anyway, and this might be a way to kind of articulate and organize those things. But it's a journey where even if you're doing well, you could become more psychologically informed. If it's really struggling and there's a lot of staff burnout and turnover, you could go on that journey as well, which is becoming more of a PI. And what I'm thinking is, we've talked about the environment being really important, the focus on relationships and the quality of that, the being trauma informed. These are some of the stages you're going through, and being really mindful about that early trauma has affected the reason why people are coming here is because they're falling through the net of a lot of mainstream services, and here's the chance to be therapeutic. And another stage you've just got onto, which I'd like you to say a little bit more about, is you could introduce a framework of some kind. And am I right in thinking you could then help the staff to? I've done this in the 3. I've introduced 3 psychologically informed environments into services in Newcastle and Gateshead here. And one of the things we do every fortnight for 90 minutes, I facilitate the staff to reflect on a framework together and to have a conversation about that. So could you say a little bit more about introducing a framework of some kind as one of the stages on the PI journey?
Absolutely. I do want to come back into Richie C's about can the environment consist of an awareness of rules and regulations and so on, because we should come back to that. And actually, folks, I would get you asking Ray about some of this, because some of the work they're doing up in Newcastle and Gateshead is precisely about feeding back to services when their own rules of engagement are maybe a little too rigid or too accident prone, say, and people end up getting chucked out or having a more difficult time engaging, as much through people not having thought through the way the service itself operates. Managing behaviour, rules of engagement. We've always had difficulty finding the right word to sum that up. But if you're wanting to get started on a process of becoming more of a psychologically informed environment, you're absolutely right, Ray. What we've always said, the golden road here is what is reflective practice. That's to say, you don't get a book or download a whole of articles and go to a lot of training courses and learn how to do it, and then kind of import that and plonk it down in the midst of your service. Reflective practice is about just taking time to think about what happened here. If there was an incident, how might that have been handled differently? What have we learned about what we're maybe not getting right from the fact that that thing blew out of proportion and the guy ends up evicted, or there was a fight, or and so on and so on and so on. And that's best done by just getting staff in the staff team.
Right, yeah.
Talking to each other, take time, value the time, thinking things through. In other words, there's not a right answer. It's not kind of bolting on. Oh, this is a bit of psychology. We'll hammer that in. It's much more about talking to each other. It's about realizing the importance of learning from day-to-day experience. And that includes what Rich says about how the rules and regulations make things impossibly difficult in a setup like a snakes and ladders game, which they often are. Then that's something you have to find out for yourself about your particular service and your particular client group. Because everyone, one client group, or one age group, or one gender isn't necessarily what works in your particular situation. So you've got to own it yourself. You've got to start with your own experience of running the service.
So it can be a helpful way to, if you're going on that stage of the PI journey, is together you could decide on a kind of framework, which could be a variety of different things. There's things from talking therapy like CBT. There's trauma-informed itself can be a framework, and just
stuff.
Yeah, lots of different things too. So it's not like a prescriptive thing saying, you need a particular framework. It's saying, what would a framework be helpful in your team of volunteers and staff and the experts by experience who are service users to involve them about what would be helpful to collectively reflect together and learn together. So I'm guessing you set up a loop of learning where people, instead of just reacting to a lot of dramatic situations and a lot of firefighting, the staff get very stressed, and then the decision-making and the anxiety levels go up. So by creating a bit of space, even if it's 90 minutes a fortnight, a framework of some kind, people can then learn and realize that other people are feeling stressed, maybe. Other people are feeling anxious.
And this is one of the reasons why I say it's not just about encouraging the frontline staff to be more psychological. It's also about encouraging the managers, funders of the service, commissioners, if it's your or charitable commissioners or whoever. It's as much about convincing them that time taken to support your staff in thinking through and whether they could have done things differently, that is really crucially important. It's not just a luxury.
And I suppose, and what
essential to doing the job when you realize what the job actually is about.
So it's essential to. We're trying to help the clients of homeless services or accommodation-based support services to be more reflective, because the evidence would be that in those conversations with staff and with volunteers, if you open up that reflective space, people can learn and change and do relationships better and skill up about learning. But then you're helping the staff to be more reflective, the managers, the senior staff in the organisation, and the commissioners. So I'm guessing to be psychologically informed, we'd like everyone at all those different levels to be able to think, well, what is the real work is actually, and people more senior to be able to think, actually, this is really valuable work that people doing on the front line with the most challenging clients in terms of the work. And so if they're mindful of that, then it can be psychologically informed, and the quality can get better, less evictions, less staff turnover, better outcomes, and more recovery for people, which is what we want at the end of the day.
Just quickly, because I know we intended this to be a sort of brief bit.
Yep.
3 things I would suggest for any organisation or any set of commissioners or funders or senior managers who are saying, yeah, we like this, how do we find out a bit more about it? On the one hand, watch these blabs, because I think there's going to be quite a lot of interesting stuff coming up here. If you go to the website that I'd set up a few years or so ago, it's called the PI Link, PIELINK. And I'm trying to use that as a place where we put research articles for those who, if you're working with local psychologists, say, they're going to want to know what the evidence base is for what's effective and what's not. Commissioners likewise want to get ideas. They want to get inspiration from other areas. So there's lots of different people with lots of different interests in this. But in particular, for your frontline staff, your frontline managers, we're getting now quite a good library of useful material. Articles written. There's a lovely article by somebody who I know is actually watching in today from 1625 in Bristol, talking about how they developed a pie approach. There's folks, I'm going to suggest as well that if you log on to the Pie link in a week or so's time, we're going to have an interview there that I did with Ray last time Ray and I met up in London. And we actually used that term snakes and ladders, or rather we used the image of snakes and ladders to describe this kind of setting people up for failure approach that so many services do by making things so complicated that people who've got complications of their own already can't possibly, they're bound to fall over one thing or another. So several things that you could do. There are a couple of government documents that I helped to write myself and 2 or 3 others, and they kind of cover a lot of territory with lots of different examples and so on. So if you're interested, by all means do. But the third thing I was going to suggest, apart from what's on the website and reading some of those government documents, the third thing I was going to suggest is that we are going to have a series of discussions like this using Blab. Or using whatever is the cutting edge technology of the day, because they are, 3 come along at once. But we're going to start to use this to get people talking to each other more in the way that you can do. And I think that's much more effective than everybody sitting there and listening to me talk, because, all I do is describe what I see and what I hear from other people about what they're doing out there. That's all I do. I'm just a, what's the word? It's that spokesperson. I'm just a telephone exchange, really. Talking telephone exchange. Ray, you've gone quiet. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
All right. What I was thinking was, I'll just let Jamie come in now. Can you hear me okay? We can post some information online as well, and when we get a bit better at putting comments on, we can hi Jamie, we'll be able to post things like the link to pielink.net and other things into the comments. At the moment, because I'm on a learning curve, I couldn't quite see where to write comments as I went along, but I'll learn for next Blab. So we're all on a learning curve, but definitely an exchange of ideas and valuing the good work that's being done all over the world. We've had people on from Japan, other parts of the States and the UK. We can share ideas about good practice and help each other out. So hi, I wanted to welcome Jamie on.
Mm-hmm. Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing. I've never done this before, and I'm fairly new to Twitter, so I'm just
well done.
Really
well
grateful.
Done. Congratulations
for introducing me to this.
I should say, he's not just you. He phoned me up 10 minutes before this thing started, and he'd never heard of Blab, he'd never heard of Periscope, he'd never heard of any of it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Log in. I'll bet you'll find it easy to join in.
What we should do now then, we should what they call prop bomb Jamie, which means if you're there and you can click on Jamie and these little hands that come up, go,
hi,
Blabtastic, man.
So can I ask Robin a question?
Yeah, sure.
I was trying to type it in. Can you see what I've typed in? No.
No.
No, I obviously haven't done it right. I'll learn. So what I'm struggling with in Bristol is how we bring statutory mental health services, CAMS and adult mental health services, in a systematic way with homelessness services, so they kind of form part of the pie, because currently they tend to operate at quite a distance. And if they can, an example would be a psychiatrist or psychologist assisting in the formulation for a young person that's got a very complex trauma history, to join in with the home service, not necessarily providing ongoing therapeutic support, but just looking at the case history and trying to really sequence our interventions with the needs of the young person in terms of what's happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just whether there are examples of cities where mental health services actually join together with homelessness services to actually form part of the experience that the person has.
Yeah. Firstly, let me always say, I'm not the expert on this. I just pass on what I hear from other places. Secondly, yes, if you want to go down the sort of good practice examples route, then we can look at a lot of places. We can find examples of places where you have got psychologists, psychiatrists, GPs, nurses, occupational therapists involved in supporting the work of the homelessness service. So if pointing to other examples would be effective, then that's one way of doing it. But the other thing that I think is always seriously worth considering is talking to the commissioners of services.
Yeah,
because they are the ones that hold the purse strings.
Yes, but we invited the CAMS commissioners to, they came and met the services on Monday, actually, because they're recommissioning CAMS in Bristol.
Yep.
And we're trying, but I get a sense, particularly when you're working with young people, it's very hard because of the split in commissioning between children's and adult services. It gets very hard to get anyone to really commit in a meaningful way to working with, for example, getting CAMS to work with 16, 17-year-olds in a meaningful way.
Yeah, if I could maybe be helpful there as well, as a couple of ideas come to mind. One is it'd be worth getting hold of the Westminster City Council have just come out with some PI guidance. So one of the things we've done here in Newcastle and Gateshead is that's going to be published on the 27th of November. But I put my email into the feed here, and or it's ray.middleton@fulfillinglives-ng.org.uk, the world's longest email. But anyway, if you email me, or I'll catch you.
Brilliant.
Basically, we'll get you the link, get you a copy of that. It's a short, very well written document, but because it's been commissioned by Westminster City Council, by emailing that, I've emailed that to some mental health people here in Newcastle and Gateshead. Yeah. It helps that relationship to build, because they can see, well, here's a document that's from Westminster City Council, summing up very quickly what a PI is in 5 or 6 clear pages. There's references to about 9, 10, 11 places that have successfully introduced PI in the reference section of that document as well. And that way, it helps people to see the relevance. So that's one thing you could do, is kind of send them that document and kind of so they can link health and housing together, mental health and housing. Yeah. The other things to maybe mention would be there's a memorandum of understanding has been signed between health and housing at a government level. And that's saying that what we need, the government is saying we need to integrate health and housing. That's both mental health and physical health with housing. And there's a big push to get innovation to integrate those two things, and in terms of reducing health inequalities. So that's because that's a top-down government document. By referencing that, people then start to see themselves in a context of their commissioners, and they think, so whether you're from mental health or the council and housing, you can think, actually, there's a big push for innovation. PI's an innovation. It brings mental health and housing together. It's in the context of this top-down. Here's the document PI guidance. Is this helpful in terms of trying to be helpful and valuable to you, Jamie, about a bit of the context, which can help that relationship build on a one-to-one with people visiting your service and talking to CAMS? And that strategically, those things may help you move the service on in the way you'd like to.
So if we're looking for examples, yes, there are a number of examples I know of services that actually do have quite strong involvement from CAMS. I'm trying to get a video. I've got a video of an interview I did with a service in North London. I'm just waiting for that to be cleared by their senior management before I can post it on the PI link. But I can tell you about it, and you could actually give them and so on. As well as the Creating a Psychologically Informed Environment document that Westminster commissioned, there's an absolutely wonderful video that the Commissioner for Rough Sleeper Services did. Her name is Victoria Asirvatam, and she produced a little video that was just an interview, just me holding the camera and her talking to the screen.
It's a great video.
Lovely one, but it's really, really clear on how services can... And so she goes for low-cost things that hardly cost anything, as well as expensive ones. But the other thing that's worth mentioning as well is to talk to people in public health. Well, as commissioners of mental health services, we're often talking about people who aren't in mental health services. They aren't even sometimes in primary care services. And although public health budgets have been really, really hit badly in the latest round of cuts, that's actually because they haven't got much money of their own. The way that public health can start delivering more preventive services is by talking with the people who do commission services and making sure they cover those gaps. Certainly Public Health England and Public Health Scotland are getting very, very interested in homelessness and mental health issues in homelessness and trying to get a better join up there. So it's probably worth trying to talk to your public health people.
Definitely.
That gap between adolescents and adults is really a commissioning created problem. That's not a problem of the individuals.
Absolutely.
That's not the complexity of the individual's needs. That's because the services have been set up too rigid. Likewise, drug and alcohol and mental health. You know, how many times do you hear people say, oh, drug and alcohol said he's got a mental health problem, we've got to sort that out first. The mental health services say you've got a drug and alcohol problem. Those are problems that
dual diagnosis problems.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of the stuff that Ray's doing, Ray and his team up in Newcastle, I've got a video coming out that uses that snakes and ladders image. But it would also probably, in Bristol particularly, it might be worth talking to the Fulfilling Lives Complex Needs program. Because although youngsters aren't necessarily mainstream in that, youngsters grow up and they in a couple of years' time they will be. So there's no reason why that program can't be looking at preventive work, which is really what in effect you're doing.
And we are lucky in Bristol in that we provide a member of staff for youth transitions within the Fulfilling Lives, so we were able to build that into the program in Bristol.
That's great. The other thing, just to mention, go on. I was just thinking, go on, Robin.
If it's not working as well as you'd like, you should put that message there. Well, you're trying to work with the mental health services, and you just need them to respond more proactively.
And I just wanted to pick up on what Robin was saying there about the different strands. In terms of public health, I had a really good chat with Jill Leng, who's the housing lead for Public Health England nationally. And she's agreed to come on to Blab to kind of have a chat, which should be exciting. So if we start to bring some of these key people in terms of system change on to answer your questions, it might help to link up those bits of the system where there's a lot of goodwill in different bits of the system to do with housing and health and other bits, addiction services, but often they don't connect well. So I think Blab, as a live streaming kind of new social media, has the ability to connect people quite quickly. So we've got Jill on and we've got some other people on. We could answer questions like you've brought Jamie, but actually get people to give you a direct answer, as it were, and to generate different ideas. It's quite exciting, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, one other thing that's worth considering as well. The Homelessness and Healthcare Inclusion, the Faculty of Homelessness and Healthcare Inclusion. I've been to a couple of their conferences. There's another one coming up in March next year. They've had a few practical difficulties in the last little while with some of their team. But they are very much focused on influencing what health does and how on the ball, how proactive the health service is about recognizing that these are major, serious needs that you need to concentrate, to focus on. So you could see whether or not there's, I'll tell you what, we can ask, a couple of people I know are part of the planning committee, and we can see to what extent they're actually making youth work, preventive work in youth, part of the programme. If not, we should be suggesting they do that for next year.
Great.
Has this been helpful, Jamie, to you in terms of a unique
Blab? I've broken the dialogue on how on that journey to creating a pie, which I find fascinating and also reassuring. But yeah.
And I think it's worth holding on to that metaphor of a journey, because one of the things I'm into is this thing called open dialogue, which comes from Western Lapland, and it's the idea that we could go on a journey together towards this the pie, and it's not like a switch that's on or off, and then we can help each other. A bit like, have you seen the movie The Hobbit? We can all be like elves and hobbits and dwarves. I don't know. Anyway, we're on an adventure journey together. We can help each other out, Jamie and Robin.
We can work some magic together, couldn't we? I think the system needs it.
A bit of sprinkle the magic blab pixie dust on there, and the pie pixie dust.
And this kind of joining up between us, like hearing what's going on in different areas. So you can say, look, they're doing this in Gateshead. Yeah. They're doing this in Westminster. They're doing this in Brighton. They're doing this in Birmingham. Why aren't we doing it here?
So can I say one thing we are managing to do in terms of, because it sounds all bad, but we have managed to we've got CAMS, adult mental health services across statutory and voluntary sector to meet every 2 months together.
Great.
And which is really positive. And we set aside half of each meeting to bringing stuck and stubborn cases. So that rather than trying to, there's the commissioning, but then there's working within the resources we've got. And everyone in that room is so committed to doing absolutely anything they can to shift the case or to improve outcomes for young people. So I think that's almost at the delivery level. But when it comes to trying to shift commissioning, when adult services have already been commissioned, children's commission services are being commissioned, no one will put money into kind of a joint transition service because of the mismatch in commissioning cycles. It's frustrating at the systems level.
I appreciate what you say. Yeah, what I was thinking was that might be then a topic for a future blab. We may get some commissioners on, we might get Victoria on, or and to actually have a specific topic, if that's going to be helpful, and then people can know a couple of weeks in advance that we're going to kind of talk about commissioning, and then we might talk about other things like frameworks, and we might have a topic of that, so we can be genuinely interactive with the audience about what people would find most helpful to add value to what you're trying to do. So Jamie, could you just what they call in social media a shout out, what's the service called that you're involved with?
The organisation 1625 Independent People.
Because we want to give a shout out to you. You've been brave, you've come on, and it's great to hear you. So what we can do next time, we're on a look, you could have a link to your website, and you could put it into, there's somewhere on your screen, it might say post a comment. And although you could do a question or a comment, you could also put the website in there, and that's letting everybody else know that. So we could give a shout out to the good work you're doing. Sounds really exciting and positive. Some of the stuff bringing people together, and also some of the frustrations about future commissioning. So we're giving you a shout out there, but also kind of helping people to see that you can put links in the comments when people watch the recording. And I'll send you a recording, and you can send it to someone else if it's worked. Let's hope. And then it helps people to connect with those people who are interested in each other.
Great.
And I happen, talking about shouting out and sort of examples of good practice and so on, I happen to know that 1625 Independent People won an award quite recently, didn't you?
We did, with everyone's support in the public. We won with.
Go on, tell us about it.
Well, it's an award for the best charity project in the UK, and it was amazing. For that.
Major props to Jamie there.
What's that? And it was, it's the staff and the young people that do it. And what they do is they work with a project called Future For Me. It works with young people leaving care, local authority care that no one else can really engage with. So the most kind of challenging young people in the care system, plus those leaving custody, those leaving young offender institutions. So they're young people that, what's common is that they've experienced very complex trauma and disrupted attachments in their lives, and then as a result they present a lot of challenges to services.
Right, that's great, isn't it? And it's good, and that's a way that we could on the blab is to kind of give a bit of a shout out to different people, different organizations, and let people know about what you're doing about, because then people can watch the video. We're already today, it's been very exciting because we started off having a bit of a general chat about pie, but then we've got into the nitty gritty about how do you communicate with commissioners? How do you bring mental health like CAMS together with those? And that's really a way I'm hoping these blabs around system change can develop, because we can take some of the ideas and invite commissioners on, or take some of the ideas, invite people on about different topics, and it can grow in a kind of, in a way like open dialogue, which is listening to what people say and then responding by the next blab, changing the topic of it.
I can see specialist topic areas like working with women, street, for example. I know a number of really exciting, interesting projects working with that particular population. Youth, aging. There's a whole range of specialist client group focused discussions we could have, just as we could look at using the built environment, staff training, learning from each other, particularly getting the health involved. We're going to have to wind up because we've originally half an hour. I just want to have a quick return to Richie C, who as a way of asking good questions, Richie. Thoughts about work that could be done with a pre-direct access hostel, no frills accommodation, a pre-pie. I'm not quite sure, Richie, what you mean by pre-direct access. To me, direct access is where people walking off the street and you don't know them. So prior to that, you've got a lot of work on engaging people in street outreach. So it's outreach is what you're talking about. If that's what you mean, then yes, we very much have the same ideas, the same thinking. There's a chap over in the States called Jay Levy who's written a couple of books on pre-treatment. Which is all about the skills of engaging people before they've even walked in through the door. But they're actually the same skills as you use when people have walked in through the door. So it's not like there's a different skill set. So I'm not sure I would call that a pre-pie model. I think that's a psychologically informed service as well. I don't see that one's more prior than the other, if you see what I mean.
I appreciate what you said there about it's actually whatever type of service is engaging with the very difficult to engage group of people with multiple complex needs, complex trauma or multiple needs. The more they can help them to reflect and become psychologically informed, trauma informed, the better, because those relationships will be better, less wear and tear. So it could be a street outreach service becomes more of a pie, or it could be a building-based service, or as we did in Gateshead, it's not accommodation, but it's a drop-in service for the homeless during the day, and that becomes more psychologically informed. So I think
the relationships, not the building.
Yeah, it's about the relationships, and that our relationships are the container, as it were, the therapeutic potential, or the potential to help people to get better. I'm thinking it would probably be good for us to kind of maybe start to wrap up now. I'll just remind people that you can click on people and follow them. So I've just clicked on Jamie's profile and I've clicked follow, and that way you can work out to start to follow people on Blab, and you can follow people in the feed. And we're going to do another Blab on system change and Pi, same time, same place next week. So Thursday at 12. Tune in then, and then after that it's going to be on a Friday at 12. But next week it's Thursday at 12. So you could tell people, tweet about it. But it's been really exciting today, and thanks for everyone that commented from various places like Japan, etc., and everyone who's come on. And Jamie, thank you for coming on. Final thoughts from Jamie, and then from Robin, and then we'll close up.
Well, I'm just, Robin's a very humble guy, but he's taught me so much, and we've really shaped our organisation around, building hugely. Firstly, on what the staff already do, and I think what I've really learned is how important for anyone introducing a PI framework, is how much you actually have to start by really recognizing and acknowledging how much of this stuff they already do. But Robin, otherwise you'll fail. You won't fail, but it'll be a harder journey. You really have to recognize that a lot of these things are just common sense stuff that we already do, showing empathy, listening, using relationships as a tool for change. But Robin's taught me so much. He's very humble, but he's amazing. And he's provided a framework for me. The way I see it is it's the relationships that are the tool for change. And what he's helped us to do is develop a framework that supports those relationships, supports the challenges of engaging people that have experienced trauma, the ability to sustain relationships and continue that trust. And the real challenge for me is how do we use relationships as a tool to avoid dependency, but to allow people to use that, then the redeeming relationships that they develop, as a way of developing new relationships in the community. But so grateful for what Robin's taught us. He's amazing.
That's great, Jamie. I'm really hoping I pressed record, because that was Really inspiring what you said there. And what it made me thought about is, when there's an election on and there's that phrase came out saying, well, it's the economy, stupid, which was the phrase saying, like, actually, if you can get the economy right, that's what people... And actually, in terms of meeting people's needs, multiple complex needs, the phrase that came to mind was, it's the relationship, stupid. Because, to paraphrase that idea, it's all about relationships, isn't it? Whether you're trying to build relationships with the clients on the front line, with your staff team to be more healing and therapeutic, empathetic towards each other's reactions, with managers and with commissioners. It's the relationship.
Totally.
So that's very inspiring. Final thoughts from Robin? Any takeaways from today?
Quickly, just to say that I've also learned an awful lot from 1625 independent people. Some other time, I want to get you talking about your peer mentoring stuff, because I thought that was really, really emotionally intelligent work in working with where young people are at. No, the other thing I would take away really is that I think this kind of, that we've still got a lot of learning how to make it work, but this Blab technology, which allows 3 or 4, we've got an open seat still. This is, to my mind, this has got a lot of potential for getting people talking to each other, sharing practice, learning from each other. Maybe we could get, maybe sometime in the new year, say, I'm not going to rush you. Maybe sometime in the new year. Yes, we should definitely have something about youth work. I think we should have something about outreach work and pre-treatment. I think we should have something about working specifically with women.
Yeah.
And that's just to get us started. What else was I going to say? Never mind, that'll do. It just seems to me that to be a bit more topic focused is one of the next things. But Ray, mention your series that you're running up in Newcastle Gateshead.
Oh, yeah.
Lab thing, because that's something we should start telling people about.
Yep. So I'm going to be offering some training around PI, psychologically informed environments, which is there's a cost to it, which is £35 per person, but anyone can email me if you're interested in it. But we're going to do it in an interesting way, which is via Periscope, half an hour a week in January for 5 weeks. And we're going to put a lot of the content together in these, and then we're going to record the Periscope, which is live technology, but we're going to make the recordings available to anyone that signs up to it. And that way you'll have 2.5 hours of really good quality PI information in things that staff can watch over and over again. So if anyone's interested in that, do email me. And we're going to do that through Fulfilling Lives here up in Newcastle Gateshead. And excitingly, we're going to do more of these blabs. So what I'd remind people, it's worth me just saying as we wind up, is if you're trying to sign up to Blab, there's some YouTube videos that kind of tell you how to sign up to Twitter, Periscope and Blab, and that's worth watching because people do get anxious and stressed about signing up. And I did too, And also, if you're going to come on, you sound really good today, Jamie, but it is worth getting either a pair of headphones like this or even those earbuds, which you plug in your ear and it's got from iPhones and it's got a little speaker halfway down the wire. That's good enough. Often to come on and talk, you kind of need a bit of decent audio. So these start at about 12 quid, so they're not really expensive. But audio can affect it if you decide to come on. And whatever, and sometimes good quality laptops, it's good enough audio. But I'm just giving people a bit of a tip about get signed up to Twitter Blab, because we'll show this video to people and encourage them to sign up to Twitter, Periscope and Blab. And this is Blab here today, and get the audio right. Come along, and you don't have to come on live TV like you have done today and be brave like Jamie and Robin, but you can come on and be a lurker, as they call it, and just lurk at what's going on and post comments. So that's a little bit of a summary of Blab. I wanted to thank everybody who's commented, people that's come on from around the world and from the UK, Jamie and Robin, and tune in, as they say, I'm getting used to this hosting thing, but tune in next week at 12 o'clock on Thursday in the UK, and we'll do another Blab on Pi, and we'll share these exciting ideas from all around the world.
Thank you. And through December, we're going to continue experimenting with this, and in the new year, I think we can do it on a larger scale.
That's great. Robin, thank you very much. I just want to try one last thing, Robin, is if you put your hand up to the side of the screen here, can you do that? Where you can see your hand, and the other way, give me a high five. Go on, high five.
Oh, I see.
The other way again.
No, you're going the wrong way.
High five. Well done, Robin. Way. High five. Yeah, that's it.
I think our screens are reversed.
All right. Anyway,
to me, we're going like that, which is a different.
So thanks for being brave and coming on. It's very exciting. Live TV is the future.
I'd like to thank Richie as well, because Richie's asked some very good questions.
He has, yeah.
We've just followed each other, so we'll see you again next time we have another conversation.
Yeah, and invite people, if you're watching the recording, invite people to sign up to Twitter Blab, and I'm dialogical_Ray. To find us. Okay, catch you later. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers, folks. See you.
See ya.